Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Icarus and today is Sex Ed Friday, where I will spend the day specifically talking about some aspect of sexuality that I feel is important. Anything from genital care to myths to today's topic, which is Dory, about consent. This is something I've sprinkled into my other videos, but I feel is important to discuss on its own. And I knew I'd make a video about it eventually, but one of my commenters, CM, they mentioned it explicitly, wanting to see something because it was something that could be useful to them as a tool when they were younger. I apologize if I seem a little bit distracted, but no. So what is consent? Consent is essentially just two or more people agreeing to whatever acts is being discussed. And this can be anything from platonic, like agreeing to hang out. You are giving consent that you can give your time to this other person. But we mostly talk about it in terms of sexual consent or intimacy. Anything from kissing, hugging, oral, penetrative sex, Bdsm, other fetishes, that sort of thing. And this is very important to talk about because for a very, very long time in especially Western history and with other cultures as well, there have been just people not understanding or thinking that consent is important. And part of that is the fact that, like, the US is very Christian, patriarchal. There's a lot of conservatism that is surrounding sex. All of this stuff kind of makes a great big sludge of how do we explain to young people what consent is and what healthy sexual relationships are like. And that leads us to the most current model that people are trying to teach, which is enthusiastic consent. And while I do agree with enthusiastic consent a lot, I feel like it falls along the side of many other models of consent where it's a little too restrictive and it doesn't allow for intuition or people to be able to discuss things. It kind of forces a black and white where if someone isn't being like, oh hell yeah, I am into this sex thing, let's do XYZ, then it's very easy for someone to kind of lock up and feel like maybe they are taking advantage of someone. To some extent, you see a mockery of this confusion and hesitance through MRAs and the like, complaining about the fact that they cannot know, they always feel like they're going to be raping someone if they don't get such an explicit thing. And I feel that is actually a failure on the part of people teaching enthusiastic consent. Yes, some of it is people being disingenuous and also not wanting to let go of the culture they were raised in, but the model doesn't work once you start getting into intimate individual examples. And not even that individualized. It doesn't work with asexual people because asexuality is literally a lack of sexual attraction. Therefore, if you are asexual, sexual intimacy may not be something that you need in order to feel complete in a relationship. In fact, I would say that's a tendency. If you don't experience sexual attraction, that's no longer necessarily a need to be satisfied in a romantic or sexual relationship. And that causes a huge disconnect with allosexual people who generally do have that need to feel complete. Now, of course, there is a variation on this on all sides where, while I haven't personally met or spoken with anyone who identifies as asexual who feels the need to be sexually satisfied by their partner for the relationship to work, there are allosexual people that choose to be abstinent or chaste because they have experienced trauma or they have no desire to, but they still get a fulfilling relationship with whomever their partner is. Partners, maybe they're also aromantic, so they don't need a romantic relationship to be fulfilled and they get satisfaction from platonic, it's huge. But generally speaking, enthusiastic consent breaks down when you are talking about asexual people. And that is because of how the enthusiasm is generally interpreted by stuff like, I'm going to be posting some infographics and I'm going to be reading from one. So I'll at least post that one that I'm reading from. And this is also a good way to show what I'm talking about when I'm talking about enthusiastic consent. So the first one is freely given. Both partners have the freedom to say yes or no. Consent does not involve any type of pressure, force, or manipulation. So freely given, it makes sense. The person has to be knowledgeable, they have to be aware. This usually is going against the idea of like intoxication, be it from drugs or alcohol. It also is very specific about not being coerced or manipulated, because there are relationships that sex is either used as an abuse tactic or becomes transactional. Financial abuse is very common in relationships when one partner is making more than the other, where financial security can be withdrawn from the partner and only given out by the abuser's demands. And sometimes those demands are, sex. This also means people who have been trafficked or are in uneven relationships of power, like say in the porn industry or as prostitutes, where they aren't freely choosing to engage in these activities, ends up it's not freely given, therefore there is no consent. Hi, Briar.
Hello.
I logged out of that. I deleted Discord from my tablet so I'd stop being distracted. Alright, so next one is reversible. I just realized this one calls it fries. So the next one is reversible. Anyone can change their mind at any time, even if you are in the middle of the affection. So if you start feeling uncomfortable about whatever activity you're doing, you can say, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Let's back it up. Let's take a pause. Let's reverse it. Let's stop. That sort of thing. If you hear nettle squeaking in the background, I apologize. The next one is informed. Both partners need to know exactly what they are consenting to every single time. This is why, to be completely frank, bestiality and sexual encounters with children is never going to work, because animals are not able to give informed consent. They do not know what is happening. Therefore, while it's okay to want to fuck a furry, it's not okay to want to fuck a dog. I hope that's clear. And same thing with children. Even if a child seems to be very intelligent and mature for their age, they do not know the emotional, physical, mental ramifications that comes from engaging in a sexual act. Children cannot consent to sexual relationships with adults because there is no way that they can have the same amount of informed consent. Enthusiastic. Both partners should be excited and very much interested in what is happening. If they are not, stop immediately. We'll get back to that one. Specific. Each individual affection requires consent each time, even if you have done it before. This is another one that makes sense, and I would argue this idea comes from the BDSM community, where, as well as the informed. I mean, informed should be understood already, but considering everything, see, I'm glad I can take video now and not be as self-conscious, because I can just everything, the world, history, the sexualization of children, all of this. So I believe this is something that is at least inspired by the BDSM community, because BDSM's motto is safe, sane, and consensual. Safe meaning, like, even the more extreme kinks, you are making sure that you can, like, end a scene immediately if it needs to be stopped, that you are not actually causing long-lasting ill effects on your partner. Anyway, safe, sane. So everyone is coherent, no drugs or alcohol, that sort of thing. It's not going to a point that is going to cause permanent harm. And consensual, where both parties agree to the whole thing at every single time. And a big thing, I mean, even 50 Shades of Grey got one thing right and immediately fucked it up, of course. But the idea of the BDSM contract, if you are entering a relationship with a new dom or submissive, the idea is the contract can be a really good jumping off point to understanding what the other person's hard limits, where they absolutely cannot do that for one reason or another, or soft limits, where it's something that needs to be discussed and figure out what their hard limits within that is. So say someone is interested in penetrative sex, but they are not interested in, say, anal sex. So if you have a contract that just says penetrative sex, you can put that as a soft limit, then discuss it with your partner and discuss the limitations. I don't like anal sex. I only like penetrative sex orally or vaginally, and I don't like being choked. That is a fantastic way of communicating to figure out, okay, my partner can handle this and this, but not this, and I need to make sure as their partner not to go too far. But let's get away from BDSM, because I can go on that forever, and let's talk about the enthusiasm and why I have such a problem with it. The way that enthusiastic consent, it weighs very heavily on the idea that you are saying, fuck yeah, let's keep going at every single step of the way. Never mind the fact that the way that it gets stereotyped is not actually how it's practiced in reality. It's more about the idea of checking in with your partner, but the way it gets portrayed is the idea that you are jumping into it, both feet in, no hesitation, This doesn't jive very well the moment you enter the asexual community, because asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction, and that generally means that an asexual person does not need sexual intimacy to have a fulfilling relationship, whereas an allosexual person may actually need sexual intimacy to feel fulfilled. So for them, it is very important to have that enthusiasm and to go into it and feel attractive to their partner. Whereas the asexual person, they may want to feel attractive to their partner. That's very much a real thing. I want to feel attractive to Briar, even though I'm like a fat meat lump that's red right now from washing my face. But I don't desire to be seen attractive in a sexual way. There's different forms of attraction. When you are in a relationship as an asexual person and an allosexual person, maybe you entered this relationship before you realized you were asexual and you are having trouble engaging with your partner sexually. You don't know how to express it, and then one day you find out, oh, I'm asexual. I don't experience sexual attraction. Sex is not a really big deal for me. That can be really hard. It's something that you need to discuss with your partner. There are asexual people who don't enjoy the act of sex, have an extremely hard time dating in the allosexual world. It's usually easier at that point to date another asexual person who doesn't need sex day to day, or rarely does, or they're able to get off on their own, that sort of thing. And like I said, every asexual person's mileage varies with their own personal relationship to sexual intimacy. It's literally just a lack of sexual attraction. But there are some asexual people that will choose to indulge in their partner's needs because they love their spouse, they love their significant other, they love their partner or partners, and they know that this is an important aspect to their partner's relationship, to kind of speak their love language. The part where the enthusiasm is like the going in, you're excited. You don't have to be excited to have sex. If you are doing this as a way to express your love and affection towards your significant other. One night stands? Yes. Go for it. Be enthusiastic. Jump in both feet. I agree. If you are going to a one night stand, if you're going to a hookup, talk with a person beforehand. Don't drink, don't be on drugs. Make sure you're in a stable state of mind, and they are as well, and try and talk about, before you get into it, what you do and don't want to do for the night. All of that, perfect, great. Go for it. Enthusiastic consent, 100%. Partnerships, that changes things. People's sexual libidos change. People's urges change. Their fetishes might change. These are things that you do need to discuss and figure out. There are entire subreddits dedicated to the idea of dead bedrooms. And a lot of people are like, oh, is your partner asexual? But really, their sexual needs change. People who have more estrogen in their system experience libido in a different way than people with more testosterone. And I'm saying this as someone who had estrogen and did not connect with their libido at all. And then I switched over to testosterone, and the ability to become horny came a lot more easily to me. And this, again, is as a person who still identifies as asexual. So there's also that. There are medical reasons why libido might change. These are all things that need to be discussed with your partner. But it's also important to realize you don't have to jump in feet first if you are doing this, not out of a sense of coercion or manipulation, but you want to make your partner happy. I think that's the only reason I have an issue with enthusiastic consent. You have the hookups and everything, and the discussion is important, but at the end of the day, you have people who are in relationships with different libidos who choose to engage in sexual behavior not because of any other reason than they love their partner and they want their partner to be happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I will probably never use the term enthusiastic consent for long-term relationships or for asexual people in relationships with allosexual people. I will harp on the idea of consent. I will harp on the idea of being open about your needs and your fears. And I will harp on about taking care of yourself and realizing if all other things have been eliminated and you and your partner are not happy because of pressure from a sexual standpoint, it's very possible you're just not compatible or no longer compatible because things change. And take a leaf from BDSM. Safe, sane, consensual, discussion beforehand, setting limits, having words, checking in with your partner while you're having the act. You can make these things sexy and fun. And my babies, my ace babies, if you're scared of the act of sex, if you don't want to go into it with a partner, but your partner is trying to pressure you into it anyway, step back. Get an older person, get a family friend, get someone who supports you 100%. Talk to them, show them the receipts, be like, I feel uncomfortable about this, but my partner is saying they need it. What can I do? And people who are curious about sex, but they're scared of doing it with their partner. Self-pleasure. Buy the cheap $15 vibrator. Do some reading up. I'll be making videos later about masturbation as well. Try to explore your own body and see what you like, because even allosexual people, this is a great thing to do. Figure out what you like. Then you can clearly communicate it with your partner, and they aren't going in blind. There's this expectation that absolute strangers should be able to hook up and have a fantastic orgasmic time, and that's not going to happen the first time, the first 100 times, unless you know what your own body is like. So, I've talked about sex a lot today. I think I've hit my quota between this and writing porn in the morning, but this is important. It is important to understand where enthusiastic consent comes from, where it falls apart, how you can supplement it with other ideas of consensual sex, and always reach out to someone. Have someone that you can reach out to, whether it be in person or online. that isn't your significant other, because they will be able to help you be a little bit less biased, and they can give you ideas to talk with your partner about. Unless your partner is actually abusive, then do everything you can to get out of the situation. But that's going to be it for me. That's it for Sex Ed Friday. Stay safe, stay hydrated, stay safe, sane, and consensual, and Happy New Year. I will see you in 2022. Bye.